Hello everyone, this is Hossein Mokhtarzadeh. I would like to talk about cognitive and motor interferences. I'm a senior research fellow at the University of Melbourne, and this study was conducted at the University of Melbourne in a Karen Lab. I'll tell you what Karen Lab is. And I currently joined Multech Medical as a customer success manager. So let's talk about dual tasking or physical cognitive interaction. During our daily activity, it is quite common we do the interaction between physical and cognition. For instance, we walk and talk on the phone, or we walk or carry something, which could be physical and physical, like motor kind of interaction. Or if you look at, for instance, the sports, what you can see on the right-hand side, we would like to have our balance, keep the balance, in the meantime, observe or score a goal or reach a point, for instance. So there are quite a lot of interaction between physical and cognitive side. Or if we look at, for instance, dual tasking in elite sport, or let's say in dangerous situations like battlefield, it could be quite challenging. For instance, in the elite sport, this could mean you win or you lose the game if this interaction will somehow deteriorate the performance of each side, or motor, for instance, performance, or cognitive performance. And this is even worse, challenging in the battlefield, because that could be quite fatal if the performance has changed dramatically. So it's quite important to know how these two interact, physical as well as the cognitive aspects. When you look at the literature, you see cognitive motor interferences as defined, as you can see here. CMI occurs when performance of a primary task, for instance, walking, is affected following the introduction of a cognitive task, for example, visual task. So imagine you are doing a walking, it could be any other motor task or running or similar idea. And then at the same time, you're trying to reach a point or trying to find a target. So that's another targeting task, which has to do you search the environment, you screen the environment. So basically the attention goes toward that, let's say the target, and your walking pattern may or may not change. That's the main thing we would like to better understand in this study. And there's a lot of studies in the literature. For instance, people have done the studies of just sort of response time. So they ask people to stand, and then while they're standing, they check their response time. And they compared this response time to a dynamic scenario. For instance, someone walking, as you can see on top right side. So then they compare, usually while you are standing, it seems to be you can do better. For instance, response time might be better. But if we wonder if this is the case in all situations. And people actually in the literature or research, other researchers have gone even further. They not only have looked at the biomechanics and some sort of cognitive part of it, like what we see on top part, like response time. They actually put a EEG cap, or they measured brain activities as well, while they are measuring kinematic or joint motion, as well as the kinematic. Let's talk about, for instance, gut reaction forces, or how the muscles working, and then how the brain, different parts of the brain activities are doing, for instance, the brain does during different activities. And then they try to understand this interferences or interactions. But what is missing here? What's missing in the literature? What we notice is most of our studies are non-spatial working memory tasks. For instance, it's like the NMAC or a Stroop test. These are the type of tests, although they are being done, for instance, at various gate speed. But what is happening here is they're not necessarily what we experience during daily life. For instance, they are not reflecting the cognitive demand that typically experienced during walking. So because you walk, and there would be walking and eye-hand coordination as well. So there's a lot of things happening here that may or may not be necessarily um, captured when you do MBAC or Stroop tests. So we need more realistic environment of a daily activity. And that is what we moved toward in this type of task, which is we called it a visual or motor targeting task. This is what we coined here. Please take remember this one VMTT because we will talk about it more as we go. Visual motor targeting task. Now VMTT is referred to as a target search. Imagine you're walking and then you're trying to find a target while hand-eye and foot-eye coordination, similar to what you do during walking, is also involved. That's what the way we define it, which is quite close to what we do during daily activities. You can imagine you're walking and then you may try to screen or search for something as you go reach a point. Even in sporting activities, this would be quite often. When we talk about cognitive motor interferences or performance of either side, it's not as easy as we just say that oh, it's interferences or mutually and they will deteriorate or worsen their performances. I mean, there might be a possibility that there's no change in their performances, for instance, here, or sometimes cognitive performance would be improved while motor performance wouldn't, or cognitive performance would be worsened. Then there is a motor related cognitive interferences, but motor performance no changes. So you have these 9 options at least that has been recognized. So it's interesting to know if we combine the two tasks, if we want to understand this interaction from biomechanics and cognition, we should not expect that we always go toward mutual interfaces. Could be any of these, as we can see here in this study. That's why we try to come up with a methodology that is somehow parametric so that we can change cognitive demand as well as the biomechanical demand. So how we change it, it's this study is talking about it during this visual motor targeting task. So how we change the biomechanics is we change the gait speed. So we actually ask them to do different speeds. And the cognitive task is trying to find different types of, I would say, targets, as you can see here. And you remember when we said VMTT or visual motor targeting task, it was visual searching while walking. So the aim of this study was to quantify cost of VMTT performance. Usually cost of, they call it dual tasking. It's not exactly dual tasking, but it's a bit more complex than dual tasking. Usually people talk about cost of it, how much if you add another task to a primary task, how much does it cost? So is it you're going to improve it or and you're going to worsen the situation or performance overall? Then the second aim was to develop a parametric protocol, as I mentioned, so that we can change the demands for VMTT or visual motor targeting task. So the research questions that we would like to address is, would this VMTT or visual motor targeting task impair visual search performance? We wanted to know that if we add the walking, if you are standing, for instance, and find a target, versus you're walking and trying to find a target, what is the visual search performance? How does it change when we actually add the extra demand of multitask, for instance? Also, from the physical point of view or from the biomechanical point of view, we wanted to know that whether this would reduce the margin of stability. Margin of stability relates to overall stability, or the definition will come after this. At, for instance, higher gait speed. So if you increase the speed, would that reduce the margin of stability? That was the question from the biomechanical point of view. All right. So in order to do that, because we wanted to do some sort of a parametric study and we wanted to include all these details, so we use this system from Motec Medical. It's called CAREN system, Computer Assisted Rehabilitation Environment, because it has the virtual environment so that we can have different types of, let's say, target in this virtual environment. You can get the motion capture like any traditional motion capture lab, 3D motion, the cameras around. We had 10 cameras. We have 6 degrees of freedom motion base. This motion base can go 6 degrees of freedom, all directions. We didn't necessarily use this. We used other types of perturbation here, but this can be added and for the next upcoming studies. The instrument dual belt treadmill. This is the amazing part of it, which means we have a dual belt, a kind of treadmill that you can control each side. So again, I'm not going to talk about the perturbation type of it here, but you will see one example that we can actually change the speed of one side and then simulate trip. That would be the amazing part of using dual belt treadmill and integrated force plate like any other lab. You can measure forces goes through the body. So we had 20 male volunteers in their 20s and 24 years old on average. Their weight was 70 kilogram, and again on average, their height 1.8 meter, and they were all right leg dominant. This is the experimental protocol that I designed. So let's go from left to right, how we designed this one. So we wanted to have, as you remember, visual motor targeting tasks. So we had visual task, basically how we wanted to screen, the person screens while they're walking and find a target and hit the target. And we wanted to make it a bit more challenging, use not go and not go, which means that we had two types of targets. One target was red, we call it like an enemy, and the other was like a green. It was the friend one. So they were supposed to hit the enemy one. And how they did it, we gave them this joystick and two markers on it, so the cameras could see where the location of that joystick is while they were walking, and then they could go and aim toward the random targets that they come, as you can see here, the random targets, and aimers is what they could control. So when they are on top of this, they could hit or they could click. And in that, we could measure or capture how well they did it. So this was the scene control. This was the target design module. In Bflow is a software. We design all these things, and the gamepad here in the virtual environment, and the random targets also coming in. Here is an example. As you can see, we measure kinetic, kinematic, EMG, and we had perturbations as well that we will not show it here. So speaking of performance, this is the way we define performance. We define it how well they find the targets, basically how, and the number of the enemy targets they hit, divided by all total enemy targets minus the friend ones, because they were supposed to not to hit the friend target ones. So this would give us an indication of their performance, how well they performed in terms of visual search. And the protocol was, as you can see here, they were going through quite a lot of trials. It was 13 trials. So it was, the baseline is standing and target size, so it's just standing and finding the targets. Then different speeds, so randomly going through the speed. W2 means a second speed, so speeds are here, written here. W2 plus T means the second speed plus target search. And this PW2 plus T means perturbation. So we're not talking about the perturbation here, but these are just, or in this combination of all, like you walk and you find target and the perturbation also. So this is happening for all the other speeds as well. And then in the meantime, each trial we could measure how they triggered, hit the friend, hit the enemy, hit the target, and at the end hit performance. So from the biomechanical point of view, as I mentioned, we measure margin of stability, which talks about the extrapolation of center of mass, basically. As you can see here, the definition is quite established. And that is the base support, and that extrapolation of the center of mass. That would tell us how well they can stabilize themselves, during walking. Here you can see an example of this person walking our subject, and while they're walking, there's no target, but he has this little thing, carrying. But what's happening is the perturbation happens, as you can see. here. It's quite interesting that perturbation happens, how he reacts. You can see here. Here she's doing the both perturbation and finding a target. And you can see that at the end, she saw the friend one target and she didn't do that. So let's have a look again. She managed to do it after she got basically the perturbation just before it. This is a bit higher speed. You can see that he actually does well when he got perturbed, and then he could actually find the target as well. You can see here again. You can see, probably can't see the target, but he did it. And then this is the not enemy, and then there would be a perturbation. Yeah, and he manages to do the other one. There's a lot of really fantastic scenarios that happened here. Anyway, the result actually of the effect of speed and dual tasking on marginal stabilities is shown here. Our ANOVA results showed the significant differences for marginal stability in anterior-posterior direction as gauge speed changes. And marginal stability in medial lateral were improved due to gauge speed and VMTT, as well as their interaction, as you can see here, all these basically. But the interesting point was in the cognitive side, the cognitive performance. When we compared the standing and just target search versus walking and target search. So our hypothesis was maybe the standing and target search, they can perform better compared to, the walking and target search. But as you can see here, when you start walking, or our subjects started walking, they did better on average. On average, they did like 25% more uh, sort of finding the targets. So visual performance is cost significantly enhanced when VMTT, or visual motor targeting task, is conducted versus single task. And it actually improved up to 25%. That was quite an amazing experience for us. We wrote an article and Pursuit actually published this for us. If you'd like to learn more about how we did it actually in a bit more detail is in the paper, but this would be a more simplified version of it. Please have a look at this link here. So finally, what we showed is that the visual search performance improves during dual tasking, according to what we actually found in this particular study. So the walking plus target search versus single tasking, or just standing and target search. But faster walking didn't affect the visual search performance. So they are quite similar performances. That was quite amazing as well. So next directions or future directions would go toward larger scale studies in different age and gender groups, so we can actually expand upon that, and various real life scenarios, such as human performance in sports, defense, or medical context, including injury rehabilitation, exoskeletal or assistive devices, for instance, because we're talking about cognition as well as the motor task, and there's this parametric study, so you can actually change the demands of each side now. So I'd like to thank quite a lot of people, our students, PhD students, master students, the Karen Lab, our interns, wonderful volunteers who actually helped me here, my master students especially, Dr. Peter Lee, and other people like Jason and Motic Medical, and Dr. Selma from Motic actually. I appreciate that, and thanks for listening.